It was the morning of December 9, 1944, a cold Saturday in the city of Nancy, France, where the Third Army was stationed. Colonel Oscar Koch, the intelligence officer who had been with General George S. Patton since the Norway campaign, prepared to brief the assembled officers. On the map spread across the table, dark symbols marked enemy positions and movements, an ominous pattern only a few could fully interpret. Patton sat at the head of the room, eyes scanning the map with a quiet intensity, lips pressed together. He did not rush. Koch had spent 3 years analyzing enemy maneuvers, and he knew when a report would change the course of action. Today, that moment had arrived. "Ladies and gentlemen," Koch began, his voice steady but grave, 15 German Panzer divisions are no longer accounted for. They have vanished from our calculations. A stunned silence followed. The officers knew the implication. These were not minor units or small reinforcements. 15 Panzer divisions represented immense firepower, mobility, and the potential to devastate their line if employed suddenly. Koch pointed to the Ardennes region on the map. "Here. This is the weakest point in our entire line. For stretched American divisions stand here, 80 kilometers from the main front. If the Germans strike with full strength, they could split our army in two." One officer raised a hand cautiously. "Sir, intelligence suggests that the Germans are incapable of mounting a significant attack. They are short on fuel, men, and equipment." Koch shook his head. "Intelligence is mistaken. I've tracked German panzer divisions assembling on the eastern banks of the Rhine. Reconnaissance flights confirm armored vehicles moving toward the Eifel. Intercepted radio communications indicate that an operation is imminent, the same method they have used for every major offensive since 1940. They are coming. The question is not if, but when and where." Patton remained silent, absorbing every word. The room was still. Every officer understood that when Patton spoke, decisions would follow. "Oscar," Patton finally asked, "how long do we have?" "A day, sir. Perhaps a week." "No more than 2, Koch replied. Patton's eyes narrowed. He did not flinch, though a faint shadow of worry crossed his face. Patton rose, and his voice carried the authority that had defined his command. "Gentlemen, we will prepare 3 contingency plans tonight. If the Germans attack from the south, we will pivot and strike their northern flank. Every route must be identified, fuel depots secured, and units ready to move within 48 hours of my order. We will not be caught unprepared." That same week, Patton called General Omar Bradley, commander of the First Army. "Omar," Patton said bluntly, "the First Army is making a critical error by leaving the 8 Corps static in the Ardennes. German forces are massing in the north. Something major is coming." Bradley laughed nervously. "George, every report from Schaeff says the Germans are finished. They could not possibly mount a major operation, even if Hitler himself ordered it." Patton's response was firm, unwavering. "I assure you, Hitler has given orders. I can feel it." Bradley chuckled. "You feel, George? We do not fight wars on feelings, we rely on intelligence." "And intelligence," Patton countered, "is telling me the same story I see." He picked up the phone and issued instructions to his staff. These were the words that would shape the upcoming Battle of the Bulge and define his legacy as a commander who acted when others hesitated. By December 14, Koch reported increased activity along the Ardennes front. Night movements, logistical shifts, and concentration of armored units signaled the beginning of a German offensive. Patton's contingency plans, drafted a week earlier, were ready. The Third Army could pivot north within 24 hours, a feat others considered impossible in such conditions. Even when officers protested logistical impossibility, Patton's calm authority prevailed. Impossible, he said, is a word used by men who do not understand the challenge. Make it happen. On December 16, 1944, at 5:30 a.m., German forces struck from the freezing Ardennes forests. Around 200,000 soldiers advanced, supported by nearly 1,000 tanks. Artillery lit the early sky like a second sun. Chaos erupted in the main German army, with units breaking down before reaching their assigned positions. The 106th Division was surrounded and destroyed within 48 hours, with nearly 9,000 American troops taken prisoner in the largest mass surrender since the campaign began. Despite the chaos, the Third Army was ready. Orders drafted days earlier allowed units to respond immediately, pivoting and counterattacking with precision. Patton's foresight turned the tide. By December 19, his divisions were already maneuvering to relieve Bastogne, countering the German thrust effectively. The speed, decisiveness, and planning showcased the unique qualities that distinguished Patton from his peers. While others were caught by surprise, Patton had foreseen the attack, prepared his forces, and executed maneuvers that would save thousands of lives. His actions exemplified the difference between a good general and a great one. The ability to trust in evidence, anticipate the enemy, and act decisively under uncertainty. In the freezing Ardennes of December 1944, this distinction was the difference between disaster and strategic success. After receiving the alarming intelligence from Colonel Koch, General Patton wasted no time. Unlike many of his peers, who debated and doubted, Patton immediately translated information into actionable orders. The Ardennes front was fragile. 4 stretched American divisions faced the brunt of the impending German offensive. Every hour counted, and Patton knew that hesitation could spell disaster. That evening, he convened his senior staff. Maps were spread across tables, markers and notes scattered across key points. The objective was clear. Prepare contingency plans to pivot north within 24 hours, a task that many officers deemed logistically impossible given the harsh winter conditions. Roads were slick with ice, heavy rain had turned fields into mud, and temperatures dropped well below freezing. Yet, Patton's mind remained razor-sharp. "Gentlemen," he said, pointing to the Ardennes, "this is where they will strike. We have no time for debate. Our units must be ready to move at a moment's notice. Fuel depots, supply lines, armored units all must be in position. We move fast, or we risk catastrophe." Patton divided the army into 3 maneuver groups. Each had a distinct objective but operated under a synchronized timetable. The first group would pivot north to reinforce the northern flank, the second would protect supply lines and prevent enemy penetration, the third would remain flexible to plug gaps or exploit weaknesses. Every unit had contingency instructions. Alternate routes, fuel caches, temporary bridges, and fallback positions were mapped and secured. The planning phase was grueling. Patton himself visited every section of the Third Army Command, ensuring orders were understood. He inspected maps, studied reports, and cross-referenced intelligence with aerial reconnaissance and radio intercepts. Koch provided constant updates, but Patton's genius lay in interpreting incomplete data and predicting enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. Meanwhile, German forces continued their secretive buildup. Observers noted increased night activity. Tanks, armored personnel carriers, and trucks maneuvered through forests and along concealed roads. The Ardennes, with its dense tree cover, allowed them to mask troop movements. Patton understood that this would be the largest German push since Normandy, and he prepared accordingly. On December 12, Patton called General Omar Bradley. "Omar, our reconnaissance shows significant Panzer formations moving into the Ardennes. You must prepare your corps for rapid redeployment. We cannot wait for reports or confirmations, anticipate their strike and act preemptively. Bradley hesitated. George, the intelligence from Schaeff says they lack fuel and manpower. They cannot launch a major attack. Patton's eyes narrowed. Intelligence does not fight the enemy. Observation does. Yves studied the radio traffic, aerial photographs, and unit movements. Trust me, this attack is coming, and it will be powerful. Prepare your forces accordingly. By December 13, every unit in Patton's command had received explicit instructions. Supply officers stockpiled fuel along key routes. Engineers reinforced bridges and roads to support heavy tanks. Communication units set up redundant networks to ensure coordination even under attack. Every officer and soldier knew the stakes. Failure to act swiftly could allow the German offensive to split the army and endanger hundreds of thousands of lives. Patton's leadership style became evident in these days. He did not micromanage but inspired initiative. Officers were empowered to make decisions in line with the overall strategy. Orders were clear, precise, and adaptable. Units drilled for rapid pivoting maneuvers, practicing movement along icy roads, navigating forested terrain, and coordinating with artillery and air support. December 14 brought confirmation. German forces were indeed mobilizing. Observers reported tanks moving in tight columns, reconnaissance aircraft spotted the enemy's forward positions, and radio transmissions indicated orders from higher command. The Third Army's preparations were validated. While other Allied commanders were skeptical, Patton's foresight ensured his troops were ready for what was to come. Patton continued to push the pace. He inspected the 4th Armored Division personally, ensuring they could execute the rapid northward pivot. We move at dawn, regardless of weather. Every minute counts. If Bastogne falls, we face disaster. Make ready, he ordered. Soldiers respected his intensity. His presence on the front lines motivated them to push beyond exhaustion. Meanwhile, Koch and his intelligence team continued to monitor German communications. They observed the enemy's attempt to mask their approach, but careful analysis revealed patterns. Fuel depots, assembly points, and forward observation posts provided clues to the impending strike. Patton used this information to refine routes for armored columns, identify choke points, and pre-position artillery. December 15 was the final day of preparation. Commanders conducted final briefings with their units. Armored divisions were fueled and ready. Infantry units rehearsed defensive and counteroffensive maneuvers. Artillery and air support were synchronized. Patton reviewed every map and plan personally, ensuring no detail was overlooked. His anticipation paid off. By evening, German movements were detected along the Ardennes front. Tanks, infantry, and artillery were advancing in coordinated columns. The offensive was imminent. Yet, when other Allied commands remained in doubt, the Third Army was ready to act. Every contingency plan drafted in the previous days could now be executed flawlessly. The significance of these preparations cannot be overstated. Patton's ability to interpret intelligence, anticipate enemy action, and mobilize an army under extreme conditions demonstrated a mastery of operational command rarely seen in military history. While others relied on conventional reports and assumptions, he relied on observation, deduction, and decisive action. By nightfall on December 15, the Third Army's units were in position. Fuel caches were secured, roads reinforced, and communication networks active. Soldiers were briefed on maneuvers, alternate routes, and defensive positions. Patton's presence ensured morale remained high, even as temperatures dropped and the threat of a massive German strike loomed. The Ardennes was quiet now, but the storm was coming. Patton's foresight, combined with rigorous preparation, meant the Third Army would not be caught off guard. While others underestimated the German capability, Patton had prepared for the worst and was ready to strike decisively. The battle to come would test the limits of leadership, strategy, and endurance, and Patton's preparation would prove crucial. December 16, 1944, dawned cold and gray over the Ardennes Forest. Mist clung to the valleys, and frost blazed the trees. From concealed positions, the German forces unleashed their long-planned offensive. Tanks rumbled along narrow forest roads, artillery fire shattered the morning silence, and columns of infantry advanced with brutal precision. The 101st and 4th Infantry Divisions, stationed along the most vulnerable points, faced the initial shock. But unlike many previous battles where surprise brought chaos, the Third Army was prepared. Patton's meticulous planning over the preceding days had placed units strategically along the flanks and interior lines. Fuel caches, supply depots, and reinforced routes allowed rapid redeployment despite the freezing weather. Communication lines were robust, with radios and couriers ensuring that orders could flow uninterrupted even amidst the bombardment. At 5:30 a.m., German artillery began pounding key road junctions, attempting to disrupt American movements and isolate forward units. Infantry followed, moving cautiously through snow-covered forests, while armored divisions tried to exploit gaps. Patton, in his mobile command vehicle, monitored every report. He remained in constant communication with division commanders, ensuring they adjusted positions dynamically to meet the evolving threat. By mid-morning, German forces had penetrated some forward lines. The initial shock caused localized retreats, but American units, prepped and drilled for these scenarios, executed countermoves seamlessly. Engineers had pre-laid obstacles and alternate routes, allowing tanks and infantry to maneuver despite crumbling roads and icy conditions. Patton personally reviewed these movements, ensuring no hesitation slowed the response. Colonel Koch and the intelligence team were pivotal in maintaining situational awareness. Radio intercepts indicated German divisions were overextended and struggling with logistics, fuel shortages and icy roads slowed their advance. Patton, however, did not rely solely on enemy weakness. He anticipated rapid breakthroughs and reinforced critical points with prepositioned reserves, ensuring that every German attempt to divide American forces would be met with immediate resistance. By December 17, the Germans had reached deep into the Ardennes, but their momentum faltered. American artillery, positioned on high ground and pre-registered for rapid fire, struck tanks and supply columns with devastating effect. Air reconnaissance, though limited by weather, provided crucial intelligence to adjust artillery and infantry maneuvers. Patton's emphasis on rapid communication and decentralized command allowed field officers to make critical decisions without waiting for orders, maintaining cohesion under pressure. In Bastogne, where the 101st Airborne Division held, the German advance met unexpected resilience. Supplies, though limited, were strategically rationed, and positions were reinforced with pre-laid obstacles. Patton's contingency plans had considered the possibility of isolated units and designed rapid support operations. Mechanized units pivoted north and south along icy roads, linking with airborne defenders and providing much-needed artillery and armored support. December 18 and 19 saw the German offensive reaching its peak. Approximately 200,000 soldiers and 1,000 tanks moved against American lines. Yet every advance was met with organized resistance. Patton's foresight in preparing routes, fuel, and coordination between units allowed counterattacks to be executed efficiently. Key towns and road junctions were reinforced just in time, preventing the Germans from cutting supply lines and encircling forces. The logistics behind this rapid response were remarkable. Trucks traversed frozen and rain-slicked roads for 20 hours at a stretch. Soldiers endured freezing rain and mud, moving heavy artillery into position. Communication officers relayed updated maps and intelligence, ensuring armored units could pivot as needed. Engineers repaired bridges under fire, while tank crews navigated narrow forest roads with precision. Patton's constant presence inspired officers and soldiers alike, instilling the belief that success was possible even against overwhelming numbers. By December 20th, American forces had stabilized the front. German panzer divisions, though initially threatening, were slowed by effective counterattacks and logistical limitations. Patton's previously drilled contingency plans allowed a coordinated push to reclaim key positions and prevent encirclement. The morale of the Third Army remained high, contrasting sharply with the disorganized German advance. Patton's leadership style was evident throughout. He combined strategic foresight with tactical flexibility, encouraging initiative while maintaining overall coordination. Field commanders could adjust to local conditions without compromising the larger operational plan. His decisions, based on thorough analysis of intelligence and observation, allowed the army to respond effectively to every German move. December 21st marked a turning point. German advances had been blunted, with many units suffering heavy losses and logistical breakdowns. Patton's preposition reserves, rapid communication networks, and contingency strategies allowed the Third Army to shift from defensive operations to counterattacks. Tanks, infantry, and artillery units moved in coordinated fashion, regaining lost territory and disrupting enemy formations. The psychological impact of Patton's foresight cannot be overstated. Where other commanders might have panicked or hesitated, Patton's confidence in preparation and execution bolstered the morale of his troops. Officers reported feeling empowered to make rapid decisions, knowing they were supported by an overarching plan that accounted for the unpredictable. By the end of this initial phase, the Third Army had absorbed the full force of the German Ardennes offensive while maintaining cohesion. German forces, though numerically formidable, faced operational exhaustion and logistical strain. Patton's planning, anticipation, and relentless attention to detail had turned what could have been a catastrophic breakthrough into a contained and manageable engagement. In retrospect, historians note that this early response in the Ardennes exemplified operational brilliance. Patton's ability to interpret intelligence, predict enemy movements, and translate observation into actionable plans was unmatched. While German forces believed their surprise attack would succeed, the Third Army's readiness rendered much of their effort ineffective. The lessons from these critical days highlight the importance of preparation, initiative, and adaptive command. Patton's leadership ensured that, despite adverse weather, harsh terrain, and a determined enemy, the army could pivot and respond decisively. This set the stage for the eventual counteroffensive that would stabilize the Ardennes and secure key strategic positions. As December 21st concluded, the German advance had slowed significantly, marking the end of the initial phase of the battle. Patton's combination of foresight, rapid mobilization, and rigorous planning ensured the Third Army not only survived the attack but was ready to strike back with coordinated force. The Ardennes would remain contested, but the groundwork laid in these days allowed the Allies to regain the initiative and set conditions for ultimate victory. By December 22, 1944, the Third Army had fully stabilized its lines in the Ardennes. The initial shock of the German offensive had been absorbed, but Patton knew the battle was far from over. The Ardennes winter was harsh, freezing rain, snow, and mud transformed roads into treacherous obstacles, slowing troop movements and complicating logistics. Yet, this did not deter Patton. His meticulous planning, executed days before the German attack, allowed American forces to pivot from defensive operations to an organized counteroffensive. Patton's orders were precise. Strike north to relieve Bastogne, where the 101st Airborne Division was encircled. Troops were informed that speed, coordination, and adaptability would determine success. Every officer and soldier understood the stakes. Failure to relieve Bastogne could allow the Germans to split Allied forces and threaten the entire front. Supply lines, fuel caches, and reinforced routes, all prepared ahead of time, now became the backbone of a daring maneuver that would test the endurance and skill of every unit in the Third Army. Mechanized divisions began their advance at dawn. Tank columns and artillery units moved with clockwork precision, navigating icy roads and snow-choked forests. Engineers worked tirelessly, repairing bridges and clearing obstacles while under sporadic artillery fire. Patton traveled with the frontline units, personally inspecting routes, encouraging soldiers, and issuing real-time adjustments to orders. His presence inspired confidence and urgency, ensuring that even minor setbacks did not halt progress. The terrain itself posed a significant challenge. Narrow forest roads limited maneuverability, and frozen rivers and steep hills slowed the advance. Despite this, Patton's prior reconnaissance and planning allowed units to exploit alternate routes and bypass bottlenecks. Communication was critical. Radio operators, couriers, and aerial observers relayed updates constantly, enabling rapid adjustments to armored and infantry movements. This level of coordination, maintained under extreme conditions, was extraordinary and essential to the mission's success. By December 23, American forces had closed the gap toward Bastogne. The German defenders, though determined, were stretched thin and suffering from supply shortages. Patton's advance was relentless, maintaining pressure on the enemy while conserving the strength of his own forces. Artillery barrages softened German positions, and tanks provided mobile fire support for infantry, breaking through resistance that might have stalled a less prepared army. The approach to Bastogne was a race against time. Weather continued to hinder air support and limited visibility for reconnaissance, but Patton's advance did not falter. Troops pushed through icy roads, trudging through deep snow and mud, often working around the clock. Coordination between infantry, armor, and artillery ensured that any German counterattacks were met swiftly and decisively. On December 24, the Third Army's lead elements reached the outskirts of Bastogne. The 101st Airborne Division, surrounded and low on supplies, had held out heroically for days. Morale had been maintained by rationing, improvisation, and unyielding discipline. The sight of Patton's advancing units lifted spirits and signaled that relief had arrived. Communication lines were re-established, allowing coordination for resupply and reinforcement. Patton's plan, executed weeks in advance, had reached its critical moment. The battle for Bastogne itself was fierce. German forces, aware of the importance of the town, mounted desperate counterattacks to prevent relief. Yet, American forces, executing Patton's prearranged strategies, adapted rapidly. Tanks provided mobile firepower along narrow streets, infantry held and cleared buildings, and engineers neutralized obstacles and booby traps. By coordinating every movement and leveraging intelligence gathered in advance, the Third Army systematically dismantled German defenses. December 25 saw continued fighting in Bastogne. Snow and ice compounded the difficulty, but American troops moved with discipline and determination. Patton, maintaining close oversight, issued critical orders that allowed divisions to flank entrenched positions and exploit weaknesses in the German lines. Despite exhaustion, troops pressed forward, their efforts orchestrated with precision that reflected Patton's foresight and relentless leadership. By December 26, Bastogne was fully relieved. The encircled 101st Airborne Division was no longer isolated, and German forces were driven back from key positions. The counteroffensive had succeeded not through sheer numbers alone, but through preparation, coordination, and the ability to anticipate enemy movements. Patton's vision had turned what could have been a disastrous defeat into a decisive victory. The aftermath revealed the scale of Patton's achievement. Approximately 100,000 American troops had maneuvered across snow-choked terrain in just days, supported by armor, artillery, and logistics units operating at peak efficiency. German forces, though numerically formidable, had been outmaneuvered and outpaced, suffering significant losses in personnel and material. The Ardennes counteroffensive demonstrated the effectiveness of preemptive planning, rapid decision-making, and the importance of leadership under pressure. Patton's approach was a study in operational art. He combined intelligence analysis, logistical foresight, and aggressive execution to maintain the initiative. While other commanders reacted to events, Patton anticipated them, placing units and supplies where they would be most effective. This proactive mindset allowed the Third Army to act decisively even under the most challenging conditions. Historians have often highlighted the importance of Patton's leadership in the Ardennes. Where other commanders might have hesitated, waiting for confirmation or additional resources, Patton acted on available intelligence and his own judgment. This decisive action saved thousands of lives, preserved key positions, and prevented the Germans from exploiting a critical weakness in the Allied line. The Battle of Bastogne also demonstrated the human element of leadership. Patton's constant presence, inspection tours, and direct communication inspired confidence and discipline. Soldiers understood not just their orders, but the broader purpose behind them. The combination of trust, clarity, and accountability ensured that units operated efficiently, even under extreme fatigue and adverse weather. In the larger context of the war, the successful counteroffensive stabilized the Ardennes front and prevented a potential German breakthrough that could have delayed Allied advances into Germany. The lessons from these operations continue to inform military strategy, emphasizing the importance of preparation, flexibility, and decisive action in the face of uncertainty. As the Third Army consolidated its positions, Patton continued to monitor and adjust deployments. Supply lines were secured, reinforcements moved forward, and artillery emplacements optimized for potential German counterattacks. By December 27, the front had stabilized, and the German offensive was effectively neutralized. This victory, achieved under extreme conditions, stands as a testament to the difference between reactive and proactive command. Patton's ability to interpret intelligence, anticipate enemy actions, and execute complex operations ensured that the Ardennes counteroffensive was a success. His leadership transformed potential disaster into a coordinated, effective response that preserved Allied momentum and set the stage for subsequent advances into Germany. The story of Patton and the relief of Bastogne serves as a powerful example of foresight, decisiveness, and the human capacity to overcome overwhelming challenges through planning, coordination, and relentless determination. In December 1944, one general's insight and leadership made the difference between catastrophe and victory, forever cementing his legacy in military history. If you found this story fascinating, make sure to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. We dive deep into untold stories of World War II, moments that changed history but rarely make it into textbooks. Your support helps us bring these hidden histories to life. See you in the next video.